beginning of the month, I posted a video saying that I was going to be doing National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo. And about a week ago, I posted a short just to let y'all know that I had reached 50,000 words. So about a week ahead of time, I was super excited about that, but because it was a short, I didn't get to talk for very long about how it went or what my thoughts were on it. And so I just wanted to kind of give y'all a more thorough update on that now that I'm pretty much done. Now I'm planning to post this video on Thursday, December 2nd, to give me a little bit of time to edit it, and just because I usually do post videos on Mondays and Thursdays, but I'm filming it on the night of November 30th. At this point, I have 58,000 words, just a smidge over 58,000. My original goal once I reached 50,000 was actually to write 60,000 by the end of the month, and I was on a really good track to do that, but then I got sick. And so my word counts for Sunday and Monday are really low because, particularly on Monday, my heart was not in it. I was more worried about, getting better than getting my word count to where it needed to be. So, luckily I had done a whole lot of writing early in the month and that wasn't a problem. The 60,000 was just my kind of moving the goalpost to keep myself motivated goal, but, I'm not really upset that I didn't get to that. I did get to 50,000. I got way past 50,000. I got past 58,000. So I figure, the rest of it can wait. I will say I'm not anywhere near being done with the rough draft of the novel yet. I am near the end of Act 2, but I still have to write the whole climax and falling action and resolution. So there's still some work to be done on that, and I'm planning on continuing it probably at a bit of a slower pace in December. I didn't expect it to be finished at 50,000 words just based on what I know about the lengths that novels usually are and what I was seeing from how long my chapters were, but I'm a little bit surprised at how long it's turning out. I tend to have a problem with writing less than I should in rough drafts and typically expanding my work when I edit. So, often I'll have scenes that are a lot of dialogue but not a lot of description, or if something doesn't really move the plot forward in a substantial amount and I feel like I can go back and write it later, I'll just put a little note to myself and things like that. I haven't been doing that as much this time. I've done it a little bit, particularly if I figure out later on that I need to add something that I didn't include in a previous chapter. I've just been making a note to myself, go back and add this. Because while I did have an outline, the outline was mostly chapter-based and didn't take into account every single scene that I might need along the way. But overall, I feel like somehow paradoxically the fast pace of NaNoWriMo made me slow down a little bit in terms of I could take my time on each individual chapter, and I wasn't really impatient to get to the next thing because I knew that the next thing was only a couple of days away at most. In any case, I did find that NaNoWriMo was very helpful in helping me to be productive and helping me to get a lot of writing done. I've not been doing writing on a daily basis for several years now, and I had kind of gotten into the habit of not really doing it. But with NaNoWriMo, I was really motivated to get my words down for the day, and while I did not write 1,667 words a day, I did average more than that. Obviously, I averaged more than that to be done a whole week ahead of time, or almost a week ahead of time. What I ended up doing, though, is I tried to make it a habit to write at multiple points during the day. I have this notebook that I've got right here, and I would take that to work with me, and I would write during my lunch break. I would also have it with me at breakfast time while I was eating. I am absolutely not a morning person, and I did not get myself out of bed 1 minute earlier than I would have otherwise, but I typically get up around 7:30, and I found that if I just did that rather than scrolling through my phone while I ate breakfast, it took about the same amount of time and let me get at least a couple of pages handwritten out of the way. I also took it with me, like, say, if I was going to go get some food and I was waiting for my order to be ready or things like that, just write down even like half a page when I had any moment of downtime that I didn't need to fill with something else. And so I think that that really helped in terms of, I get home between like 5:30 and 6 often, and so having already several handwritten pages done at that point, I got this little stand for it and I put it here, and I would have my computer right here, and I would type it all up as soon as I got home. Often that would come out to anywhere between 500 and 1,000 words, which, is a big chunk out of what you want to end up writing for the day. And sometimes that would be all that I would write for the day. I would get home and type it up and be done for the day because I was exhausted. I was done. And other times I would go on writing and I would write for, maybe a couple of 30-minute blocks of time or an hour straight or something like that. And I would end up with maybe more like 2,000, 2,500 words for the day. But that was one way that I just kind of tried to integrate it into the little moments of my daily routine, whether that was 15 minutes drinking my tea in the morning or during my lunch break or just sitting outside on a park bench because it was a nice day or whatever the case may be. The other thing that I did on pretty much every Saturday during the month is I set aside 8 30-minute blocks of time throughout the day to write. I separated these by hour blocks of free time, and I think that worked really well because an hour is enough time to eat a meal, it's enough time to make a phone call that might last for quite a while, it's enough time to read several chapters of a book, to watch an episode of a TV show, and in that way my Saturdays still felt like a day off, but I got a lot of writing done throughout the day. I also did that on the Wednesday of Thanksgiving break. I went home on the Tuesday to be with my mother, and then, I really didn't have a whole lot to do on the Wednesday, and she was all for it. She was very supportive of, me. She's very excited about me doing the novel writing thing and all of that, and so I was able to just kind of block out 30-minute sessions throughout the day, and I think that if I had been in a situation with a lot of family members who would be, maybe put off by me wanting to take several 30-minute blocks out of the day just to go write, then it wouldn't have been as doable. But with it just being the two of us and her, knowing what I'm doing and being super supportive of it, it was a great way to, be able to get a lot of writing in during one of the days of that break. I did find that I had to not really worry about what I had written before. And if I found like inconsistencies or if I found something where, I need to go back and change this because of what I've decided to do here, then I had to just make a note for myself and go on. If there was something that I needed to look up, I know that I have a note in there to look up how they got water, like just have a glass of water in the 19th century. Like, did they have running water? Did they have a tap somewhere near the house? Did they have to go out to the well like in the Middle Ages or whatever? I don't know the answer to that. But I have a character, and my story is set in a fantasy world setting, but it's strongly based on 19th century Europe. And so I need to know the answer to that in order to write that scene, but it doesn't really matter. The mechanics of it don't really matter for the flow of the story, just in the rough draft stage. So I just have a little note for myself there. Little things like that. I have plenty of characters that don't have names yet, actually. Not my main characters. My main characters have names, and I chose those names well before the start of November. But, just minor background characters. Sometimes names came to mind. Sometimes they're just insert name here. Or I think actually what I went with was first name, last name, so that it would be the correct number of words, and I would know, where I wanted to fill in a first name versus a last name, or like Mr. Last Name, or things like that. I had a character that just kind of refused to be left out. She was supposed to be just kind of a one-scene, unimportant background character, but she just insisted on showing up way more often than I had intended. And I was a little bit concerned about this at first because, I did not plan for this character to be here, and what is that going to do to my outline, But actually, she filled a role in the outline that I needed somebody to fill and just hadn't thought that far or planned it out yet, so it worked out really well. At this point, I'm planning on finishing the novel in December. I created a new NaNoWriMo website goal that's not affiliated with any of the individual challenges, just to kind of set a goal for myself to wrap it up, and I set it at 20,000 words. Do I know for a fact that the rest of the story will be 20,000 words? No, I really don't, but it's kind of a low estimate based on how long my average chapter has been and how many chapters I have left to write. And so I think between 20 and 30,000 more words should get me there, and I want to be able to track my progress in early to mid-December the same way that I've been doing in November. I probably won't be planning on writing as many words per day because I don't think it's a sustainable pace for the long run. Although I may still do some of those 50,000 word Saturdays. So we'll see how it goes in December. I'm going to be talking a little bit pretty soon too about some different things that I experienced in hindsight. I'm not a professional writer, and so I don't want to give advice on like how to write a publishable novel because I have yet to do that. But I think that I can write about things like time management for writing and dealing with writer's block and just some of the general things that you encounter when you're writing, whether it's for a hobby or for professional purposes. So expect at least a couple of writing related videos in December and January. I'm also planning on a video about allegories pretty soon. I'm reading A Christmas Carol for catching up on the classics, and in January I'm planning on doing a series of videos about the hero's journey. So if you've ever been curious about the hero's journey or how to identify it in popular stories that you might know, stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it and you'd like to see more like this, feel free to subscribe. I talk about reading, writing, literary concepts, classic literature, and much more.